I've been seeing a lot of people on social media, TikTok, YouTube, talking about the end of the world, talking about the collapse of capitalism, talking about AI, spelling the end of the human race. And this fascination with the end of the world is something that I want to talk about because it speaks to so much of the attachment that we have as individuals and as a species to this world, to the world that we create and the world that we have created collectively. And there are some people that look at the world and they see a horrible, repressive system that they can't wait to see it collapse, so that presumably they could create something of their own, something that they judge as good, as positive in its place. And other people look at the world we have now and say, you know what, this is amazing. We are on this upswing, and we are going to just go up, 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 and things are going to get better and better and better. And both of these views, they're myths. Both of them are myths that have played out again and again throughout history. One is the myth of going from some golden age to falling into collapse and calamity and a apocalypse. And the other myth is going from a place, a savage and dark age, and coming up to a bright utopian future beyond our imaginings. And both of these stories have played themselves out in different cultures and different myths throughout history, and both of them are these archetypal progressions or kind of frames of thinking about history and the progression of human culture. And neither one of them is really the full truth. Every culture, every society, and every human being doesn't just go like that or like that. The reality is we go like this. We have these ups and downs. We go through waves. And looking at, there's no one place where you can point and say, this is where society started and this is where society ended. There are places where certain societies come into being and others fall. Some are going up, some are going down. And we have not just one wave really, but we have multiple waves all across the world going up and down. And it's the same thing with human beings. You meet somebody, sometimes they're, feeling awesome. They're glowing with energy and power. And then you meet them a few weeks later and they're in the dumps. They're just looking at their feet and they can't seem to see the horizon. And if you think about yourself, most likely you've also gone through these kinds of cycles. And there's, in Hinduism and Buddhism, there's actually the wheel of life and death is a metaphorical embodiment of these cycles that human beings go through and that societies go through. And this wheel of life and death, it's about, you're climbing up and you get to this level of deities, of gods that just enjoy life to the fullest. And then you fall out of that and you get to the place of demigods that are jealous of those gods, the place of hungry ghosts that are wrapped up in their addiction and their yearning, and then to hell, to the tortured realm where you're tortured by demons for eons. And then out of that into the animal realm where you're ruled by fear and compulsion. And then to the human realm where you have a little bit of peace before you rise up into the deity realm again. But even the deity realm, that is not the place that spirituality points to. All true spirituality isn't about getting to the place of deities. It is about escaping the wheel entirely. It is about standing apart from, aside from, back from this cycling, this wheel of samsara. And so in this conversation about the end of the world, in this conversation about apocalypse, like what is going to happen, I guess I want to challenge anyone who's trying to game this whole system and trying to game the future, and who has a very strong idea of whether it's going to go up to utopia or down towards collapse, and any attachments you have towards these narratives, I want to challenge you to step back and step outside, or to the side, and look at the world, not as some kind of linear progression, not some kind of, not judging it as good or bad in any scenario, but really seeing it as reality, seeing it as it is right now, without trying to change it, without trying to say, oh, what we have now, the capitalistic society we have now, is bad, we need to get rid of it. Or looking at it and saying capitalism is amazing, look at everything we've built with it. You could look back and make similar kind of critiques about, or praises about, the feudal system, or hell, about the Soviet, communist system. There's some people that loved it. It's really looking at what society is doing right now and trying to predict the fall and collapse of human civilization has less benefit in it than I think most people think it does. People are so wrapped up in survival, and this is a thing that our bodies and our minds have been built to do. Our bodies physically are trying to keep us alive, and our psyche, our ego, is there primarily as basically the software to meld with the hardware of our bodies so that we can navigate socially, we can navigate psychologically in the world. The ego is primarily interested in keeping us alive socially. We get enough tribal connection. We get enough food in to keep our bodies alive. We get the kind of place in society where we can pass on our genetics to a partner that also has whatever kind of genetics that we're hoping to find. And this attachment, this investment in survival, isn't just on an individual level, it's also on a societal level. The fears and the anxieties about whether or not we continue as, in the structure that we currently see in the world, is really deeply rooted in our individual fears about whether we live or die. Now, there is an interesting point that I want to make about thinking about society as going through a transformation, as going through a collective awakening. And this is another perspective that exists right now. It's not like, are we going towards kind of technological utopia or apocalyptic collapse, but a different perspective entirely that is that basically, are we going through a collective awakening? Are we going through a collective movement from this wave, this samsaric cycling, to stepping out and stepping away from this from the cycle entirely? And that, I think, is a much more interesting question, because looking at society as an individual, seeing some of the parallels in the progression of an individual consciousness, I think we can see similar patterns in the collective consciousness. Systemically, different levels, different systems, whether it's an individual, a family, a community, a nation, or the global community of humanity, all these different systems, all these different levels are actually, they work in parallel. They are connected, they are interconnected. And understanding one can oftentimes give us insight about the others. And if we look at how awakening happens in an individual person, there is typically this, we function with these, again, egoic survival mechanisms, these defenses, to keep things managed, to keep things under control. And I think that society, human civilization as a whole, has developed similar systems It is the economic systems. It is our food creation systems. It is, our governmental systems. It is all of these different systems that we have created in order to survive, to continue, living as large groups of people. And what happens? What happens when those systems collapse? And I don't mean collapse as in they break down and fall apart, although that is one way in which they can collapse, but that what happens when we see through them? We recognize that all of the, for an individual, let's say, all of the stories that we've created are just stories. They're just myths. They're not real. What happens when we realize that, oh, wait, this person who I thought I was, let's say, I'm going to go out and I'm going to be a creative. I'm going to be a writer or a banker or, a builder. And you come to a point when you realize that, oh, all of that actually isn't who I truly am. All of the things I've been doing to keep up my life, my home, this family, this identity, all of these things, while they give me value and they give me, some sort of validation and satisfaction, that's not the truth, not the full truth of what and who I truly am. And that is really the kind of opening, the blooming of consciousness, the realization of consciousness being aware of itself, realizing that there is something beyond just the name and the identity that we have crafted all our lives. What happens when that same process of awakening to consciousness happens on a global level? And I think we are in the process of seeing that now. I think that what we are seeing with basically the internet age, giving more and more people access to spiritual ideas just like these, we're seeing more and more people, light bulbs coming on. A friend of mine put it like this the other day. We were walking and talking about this. He's like, it feels like a field of flowers, and they're just blooming. They're just opening up. And just like in the springtime, it's not just one flower that opens, it's a whole field that opens kind of like one after another, because there is we are part of an ecology, a human ecology, and not just a human ecology, a global ecology. And so we are together, collectively, entwined, intertwined, and collectively we are opening and awakening. And I heard this narrative before. I heard it, a lot in kind of new age spaces, and I didn't really put much stock in it until, my own consciousness started to expand, and I started to realize and recognize that actually there are people all over the place, all around, sometimes in my own circles and friend groups, that are waking up. And in seeing that both in literally in people that I know, in people that I work with as well as seeing that in the kinds of messages that are being put out in books, in films, in places that you would least expect it sometimes. You're finding the message of awakening being communicated. I think a great example is the movie Everything Everywhere All at Once. It won Best Picture of the Year a few years ago, and it was instrumental in one of the sparks of my own awakening. And the fact that movies like that mass media like that is, creators are are channeling that, are putting that out there, is phenomenal. And I think that because of that, more and more people are waking up. And so the question becomes, okay, what happens when a whole society, what happens when a whole civilization or a whole planet starts to wake up in this kind of way? And it's tempting, I think, to go back to those old myths. Well, everyone's going to wake and everyone's just going to leave their jobs and society's going to collapse, and suddenly we're going to have, farm-based utopia. Everyone's going to go back to the land. Maybe some people are going to do that. Maybe some people are going to choose to do something else. I don't know. You could go the other way and say, well, suddenly we're now an enlightened civilization and we have technology that is exponentially increasing. We can use that to create a utopia, a heaven on earth. Maybe that's the way that it goes. But there's a more interesting thing here. There's a more interesting way to look at it, which is forget about trying to break your brain, trying to figure out what tomorrow is going to bring. If we stay present to what is right now, if we really drop in to that consciousness of recognizing we are not our bodies, we are not our jobs, we are not our countries, we are not even really the human race. We are consciousness itself, manifesting in human form, manifesting on this planet in this kind of way, aware that we are aware, the universe watching and experiencing itself. From that perspective, it does not matter if society crumbles and we're all on our own or have to rebuild in a new way, or we put on the jetpack and we go off to the moon and expand throughout the stars. It does not matter. It does not matter even if we stay the same, even if we stay exactly as we are right now. Nirvana, utopia, true utopia, the kingdom of heaven, is not really a place. It's not really a destination. It's not really an economic GDP or a structural economic or political system. It's none of these things. And people who think that they are, they're stuck in that survival brain. They're stuck in an imagined, trying to finagle with their minds how to get out of a problem that the minds themselves, our minds, made for us. All that we see around us, all of the difficulties that we're encountering, really, they don't come from the fact that there is death or sickness or inequality. It comes from the fact that we judge these things as wrong, that we judge these things as bad, as opposed to being present with reality and saying, this is it. This is reality. This is heaven. It is not some other system. It is not some other way. This is perfection. And that is one of the hardest things to do for an individual looking at their own lives, saying, you know what, actually, I don't have to get any better. In fact, how as I am now is perfect. And other people might judge me for that. Other people might put me up here or down there or anywhere else. But actually, the very fact that I'm alive, the very fact that you are breathing, that you are witnessing, that you are experiencing, is itself the universe embodied, is itself the universe dancing. You are part of the dance. You are part of the movement. And there is a peace in recognizing that regardless of where you are in this dance, whether you're dancing on the top or you're dancing on the bottom, there is a silence, a silent music, a silent note that plays throughout all of history, throughout all of reality, whether it is the dawn of civilization, whether it is the peak of empire, whether it is the ragged bones of an apocalyptic wasteland. There is a note that is playing, and it is beautiful. It is the note that God spoke when the universe was created. It is, in fact, prior to that, and it will be here after that. Do not worry. Do not concern yourself with whether we are about to explode in joy and ecstasy or collapse into terror and death. Because the true kingdom does not fall, and it does not arise. The true kingdom is eternal. The true place that we all long for, the true home that we all yearn to return to, is not a place in physical space, and it is not a place in time either. It is a place at the center of being itself, which is at every single point of the universe, all at once. You can find that center. You can find that place, that home. And I hope you find it. I hope you come to rest there. And I hope you come to act and speak and live from that place. Because I think that the more people that live from that place, the easier of a time we're going to have collectively. And I don't say that with any kind of missionary zeal. I don't say that to say that we have to all wake up, that we have to all live from that central place, because that itself is also a trap. Instead, finding that for yourself is enough. And when you are able to find someone else or a group of people that also have that center, that also live from that place, it's just joy. It's just like finding long-lost brothers and sisters, long-lost family. It's a sense of coming home. And I hope to see you there.